Looking at the vision scope, the capital costs, and Lynn gave you a sort of a ballpark here for the capital cost, and then of course the per usage cost. Currently, we're working with disposables because autoclave is a very expensive procedure. It's not bulletproof, and we, in the doctor's office, of course, are using this in the offices, and therefore they don't have autoclave. So disposability is a real plus there. Looking at that, let's look at the capital cost, which is about 20,000 camera and so forth. Let's say it's under 20,000, and then your disposable costs, which might range between, depending upon quantity purchased, might average out between $300 and $500, or $300 and $400 for a capital cost. How would you say that might where might be a sweet spot for cost on that?
I think one thing that I look at right away is that I'll say veterinarians are frugal. They have to be, because we do the same procedures, we go through the same thing as in the human field, and except in the human field they're getting 10, 20, 30 times more. So one thing that I would see that they'd probably do, that they would reuse them by gassing them, and probably get maybe 1 or 2 more times, and maybe 3 procedures total, something like that. But obviously you've got planned obsolescence to that too, because that scope is not going to last too long, right? So I think that that's probably a built-in plus to the system, that you can reduce your cost of the disposables. So then where you have your hard cost, that's a big thing that you're going to have. And I think that it would be more, it would be appealing to the upper level practices to start with, and then if it can come down any, then of course it's going to be more available to more practices.
Give me your gut feel here in terms of the hardware costing for a good entry price for a lot of practices versus just the top-end practices, as well as the disposable price for a lot of practices. And again, realizing what, and I haven't asked you this, what they might charge the customer versus what their cost might be. What do they want to see for margins in terms of markup and so on?
Yeah. Well, what can you charge for something like that? I think that it's fairly easy to charge $400 or $500. That's an easy procedure
to the customer.
To the customer,
right. And they can do 2 or 3.
Right. Now, on the bigger tracks, it's not as big a deal. You probably charge $1,000 on that, and so I think there's some, and they probably would. So again, your upper level practices would be able to charge more, but you're going to have fewer of those that you're going to sell. And then you're going to be wanting to talk about disposables after that, because then they're going to have to replace those. So you kind of want, like so many things, you want to get them out there,
right.
Because once you get them out there, then they're going to have to buy disposables from you. I mean, that's good business.
Sure. So you're saying that the average veterinarian might be able to sell this to the end user for $400 to $500. That would be
I think that would be if I was looking in here, because we don't have, we don't see a lot of the $100,000 horses. We see a lot of those that are, the cheaper standardbreds and such. And for them to come in and do an outpatient for $400 or $500, it's a lot easier to do that.
And then what would be motivational in terms of the vet? Would $200 a procedure in their pocket be something that would be very, for 10 or 20 minutes of?
Yeah. I think so. They're going to have to prep it, and there'd be other things that you do besides that too. You're going to probably give them some antibiotics, or you're going to tranquilize them, and so there's going to be more profitability that's built in around this too. It wouldn't be just that, but if you just look at the hard costs of that.
So the retail price on this, let's say a customer came in, had a horse, you would charge them, let's say $400 or $500 for what we call VSI, as opposed to a MRI. We call it VSI. So you charge them $400 or $500 for the VSI. Your cost, if it's, let's assume that we could get the cost down a little bit, let's say around $300, for example, that would make profitability for $200, and that would
generally you'd like to double your mark,
okay,
so that if you could get
100% mark.
so if it costs you $300, you like to get $600 for it.
Okay,
and know that you can build in some extra. That would be nice. Because some of those, you're going to take that and it's like you're going to beat it up like I did there, and then it's only going to last one horse. So
right, because we really would probably want to affirm disposability here for a number of reasons.
Oh, of course you do.
Because just to cut down any claims or any problems.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
You know, and so what happens is when you detach it, it's no more, is what happens on our particular unit at this point.
Well, that's what you need to tell people.
Yeah,
That, so.
well, obviously we
Yeah,
would.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, one usage, but you probe it in as many times as you want. It's just
Yeah,
that once
yeah.
that.
But you want people like me out there saying, well, you know, you could get another time or two out of that,
Yep.
because, you know, I think that it gives more usability, more flexibility,
Right.
able to use it more.
Okay.
Because that's going to happen anyway, and I think that adds, again, it's okay, because they'll find a bigger group of patients to use it for.
Okay. So you're saying that this should have two usages, if possible, if it's at all possible.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a $100,000 horse, racehorse, yeah, throw it away, charge them $1,000, charge them $15, whatever, you know. And I think that the people in the field, you know, they could charge as much as an arthroscopy in the hospital on some horses, because it gives them so much more flexibility. So you could market that up to $2,500. You know, the guy in the high end could do that.
Right.
Or the rechecks. You know, you're looking at horses that are, you know, okay, we did the arthroscopy, but now we want to know, is it ready to go? Okay, and to charge, you know, $500 or $1,000 for that would be certainly something that I think would be appealing. Because that's something that they'd make money on again too.
Right, right. So again, we're talking large animal. How about small animal? Same kind of price point for small animals?
Yeah, I think you could probably do the same thing, small animals. I think there's a lot more small animals out there. So if you could hit the market and be doing things with this there, I think to be able to make it something that's more accessible for the small animal surgeons, you know, so economically, I think that.
You say for small animals, so actually using this for the operating procedure?
Yeah. I think you'd find that, because you can anesthetize a dog like that. I mean, it's no big deal, you know.
Right.
And then I think you don't have to worry about any movement or anything.
Okay. We're certainly going to do a trial with some small animal vets and see what we can do there. But then
I might be able to have it, because we.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That'd be great. If you got somebody that's a thought leader, we'd like thought leaders, so
Yeah.
that'd be great. All right, so that's another trial for us. Within that, just talking about the market opportunity out there, this is something that we have to present to our board and say, okay, here's the market opportunity. The numbers that you were very nice to provide us with, kind of, when you said cut to the chase, and I'll just kind of review what you said for the numbers. You said there are approximately 50,000 small animal vets and 4,000 equine vets. Most do some degree of surgery and lameness diagnosis. Although there are only 2,000 surgeons who specialize in surgery and diagnosis, it would do many vision scope exams. So you said that you believe the largest share of sales would come from the veterinarians that would want a less expensive means of diagnosis. The surgeons like yourself would use vision scope for follow-up and diagnosis. So with that in mind, you're looking at 50,000 small animal vets nationwide and 4,000 equine vets. How many of those folks do you think might be in the market for something like this at a suitable price point?
It's going to be very hard to say. I did read something about how many knee procedures are done a year, and it is a tremendous number. But that's because of the small dogs they luxate, and I think to follow up with some of the evaluations of that might be a possibility for that. But we're talking about hundreds of thousands of procedures a year that are done, and so if you can just get a small percentage of those to be able to follow up on, you can't replace that, but to evaluate the inside of that joint. And again, you could do it as an outpatient for dogs, even if you anesthetize them. You just, anesthetize them, go in, pop the scope in there, look at it, and they're back out.
When you said hundreds of thousands of procedures, are we talking about OR procedures or just diagnostic procedures?
No, they're OR.
They're OR procedures.
Yeah.
So there are hundreds of thousands of knee procedures done on dogs every year.
And that's just knees, yeah.
That's just
shoulders
knees.
and.
So this has applicability for the OR, or as you said, on an outpatient basis.
Yeah.
Which would really cut down the cost associated with the.
Exactly.
Okay. And then in terms of diagnostics, so that would be OR. How about diagnostics then? How many estimated diagnostics might there be prior to doing?
I mean, you're gonna have a magnitude of higher of that, I'm not sure, you know, could be 2, 3, 4 times more. I mean, you're gonna get a lot more diagnostics that you could, that's gonna happen that you, I think it's more, I'm surprised that there's not more, nuclear scans and things in small animals. I think there has to be more education that people, and I think the key is that the veterinarian has to make money on it.
Sure.
Because they don't look at it that the dog's a little lame, well, give it some more Rimadyl, you know? I mean, it's easier to do things like that rather than how you're going to make money on that. I think if you can provide a diagnostic procedure that's affordable to go into the average veterinarian's office, and they'll use it then. So I think that's, because they can't afford MR, they can't afford nuclear medicine. Now they can refer it someplace, but it's all too often that we just say, well, you know, we'll just live with pain.
Okay.
And I think that's an important education, educate people that, you know, you don't have to live with pain. You know, there's just flexibility. They can have a machine like this and look inside there, make a diagnosis, and do something about it, and oftentimes.
Okay. Realizing that there, and again, we're just talking small animal here initially, and we'd love to meet with your other, your small animal vet recommendation. That if there are hundreds of thousands of procedures of the knee done, and there might be more of other parts, and that the diagnostics might represent 4 to 5 times that amount, then the idea that there is a disposable, and this could be done on an outpatient, you're saying would have a certain amount of appeal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, an outpatient procedure. Okay, and then let's look in terms of the large animal vet. I don't know, how many would you estimate of knee procedures or other procedures this might be applicable for large animals?
Well, there are some 35 vet schools in the United States. That's just in the United States, because I could think that there'd be an international market for it too. Maybe even more of an international market. I don't know, because it's made more affordable.
Yep.
And go to some of the other countries. I mean, we certainly have in America the very best and the best medical service for veterinary medicine, and the best diagnostics. So I think that 35 vet schools, and you probably have another 250 upper level practices that would be using those upper level courses, and I'm guessing at those numbers. But then there are a total of equine practitioners belong to the American Association of Equine Practitioners. I think it is, our meetings are about 5,000 or 6,000, and they're not all just equine, but the majority of those are equine practitioners. So that kind of gives you an idea of total equine practices that are out there, and you know, every one of them would like to have something like this, so that, because you know that. And everyone is looking for something to make them a little bit better. You know, how can they be a little bit better than their competition down the road? So it's just like, here's a good example of digital X-ray systems. You know, it wasn't 5 years ago that hardly anybody had digital X-ray systems. Well, now, if you don't have digital X-ray systems, you're not, you know, you're the minority. There are some out there, and they start about 20 grand. But they're cheap systems. You don't get very much for that. Very difficult to do that, but you know, people are entering into that, and it's surprising how many people buy that. And eventually, you know, some of those practices